Hi there, it's Roy from Sulphur Sabers. This is an overview of our AS3 hilt, obviously built by Anakin in episode 3, and yeah, some people refer to it as like the Anakin Flex or Aniflex, but either way, it's a great looking saber. Or the Youngling Slayer 3000 is normally the referral, obviously, post Order 66 after he enters the temple. It's got a few names, this model. Alright, so first off, a little word of warning, it's an absolute fingerprint magnet, so I am wearing gloves. Despite this, I will be leaving some marks on it as I go, which tend to evaporate off, so don't get too concerned. It seems to be marking up quite easily. That's just part and parcel of highly polished hilts like this one. So first off, I've got to say, you know what, a really beautiful hilt. This is for my Anakin hilt from episode 3. I have a 7 chambers model. They did a run called the Aniflex, which was considerably more expensive than this one. But I have to admit, I'm quite pleased to see that this one measures up quite nicely. Very much so, in fact. First thing that strikes you is a very substantial hilt. I know my model I have is electroplated brass. I'm gonna hazard a guess that we might have something similar here, because this actually does weigh this is a very substantial weight. So you certainly know you're going to be wielding a saber, so you're getting definitely good value for money and a good build quality on this one. They've done things right. So I'm pleased to say, and this is a trend we're starting to see in a lot of the Canon or screen accurate hilts that we see coming out of the manufacturers over the last 12 months. In theory, this has come from a budget manufacturer, but it's got anything. Sulphur City Sabers being our budget line, and Sulphur City Foundry being a lot of the custom work that I do. So I tend to work with more expensive bespoke runs over on Sulphur City Foundry. But this model is actually the gap between the high-end bespoke stuff and the stuff that the so-called budget, I'll use that term loosely now, manufacturers are producing is getting quite close. Even I do know that a lot of the places that the so-called budget manufacturers actually manufacture a lot of the higher end hilts on behalf of some of the bespoke custom designers. So I'm pretty much going to say that a lot of the stuff is fairly aligned these days, and like I said, you'll know that as soon as you pick up this hilt. Not only is the finish absolutely spot on, the manufacturing, the machining is great, just the attention to detail is superb. Everything doesn't look too dissimilar to what I've got on my substantially more expensive hilt. But like I said, 2 or 3 years ago, the gap was a lot wider, and that's when I would have purchased that expensive hilt. And like I said, nowadays you can make some very, very shrewd purchases and pick up some amazingly high quality items, and I'm glad to say this is one of them. And we're very picky here at Sulphur City Sabers about what we stock, so we won't list a saber that we have we don't think measures up. We only, even though this is still technically our budget range, we tend to consider our Canon designs to be, they have to be a high quality and reflective of what you see on the screen. We have never stocked anything that we had any concerns about. I'm glad to say there's absolutely none from this. This is a beautiful hilt. Right, so let's delve in. Enough of the lauding about it. Let's just delve in and have a quick overview. So this is not an operation video. For that, just refer to the some of the operation videos just a bit further down on the product listing. This just gives you a bit more of an insight into how to handle it. So first off, this is the RGB version. So there's the RGB lens here. This will just illuminate a hollow blade. So it's not a pixel blade. But everything, the operation is pretty much the same. So you would insert your blade in here, comes down, and that mates up with the front of the electronics core, and you'll just use your blade retention screw, which is this one, fix that in place with your Allen key, no more than about a third to a half of a turn if you're fitting a heavy grade blade. Make sure to check our blade fitting and Saber recharge video in our support section. Right, so this is just a static feature, as is this button. You might find that some manufacturers actually make these clicky buttons. They're actually a pain in the neck to install, so I'm kind of glad that they haven't. This design has gone with using an option I like, and you find this in the higher end designs as well, which is just like a little rocker plate that sits above two tactile switches. So if you click the upper end of the plate here, there's a little switch under there, and the bottom, there's a switch down there. Like so. And I won't run this too loudly tonight, my kids are in bed. Okay, so in terms of how this comes apart, there's the pommel section just down here, and there's a vented pommel, so you get really good sound out of this. This is a nice resonator, this one. A lot of the volume and sound colour that you get from a Saber hilt depends on the design and the how the hilt actually resonates, and this is actually quite a good hilt for audio. If you want to use this, put this on display, and you don't want the vents on the bottom, the vents aren't screen accurate, the Saber actually comes with a plain pommel as well that you can swap out. Little note on this pommel, okay, I try not to over tighten this. I get this on seen this on the other episode 3 Anakin hilts that are out there as well. You don't have a lot to get your finger on there, so you don't want to over tighten that pommel, because you might have to use a tool or so just to loosen it up and get it out again. So kind of not even a hard finger tight, just finger tight it and you should be fine. So anyway, let's see how everything comes together. So if you want to charge this Saber, doing this with gloves is a bit trickier. There we go. Let's get this pommel coming out. And I've actually popped a little bit of lube on here as well, because I've seen these Anakin hilts to be a bit of a pain. Trying to get this pommel out on other models, so I'll just lube that up slightly. And at the time of recording, which is October 2023, this is the chassis system that comes with the AS3. So it's a removable chassis system. You'll see there's like a little handle. So what you need to do to pull that chassis out, you just fingertip it out, and you can remove the entire chassis. And this is the same on the RGB version, the NeoPixel version, and the Profi Pixel version as well. You can see that chassis is stepped, and that mates up with the step on the inside. You won't see that too well because it's not well illuminated, but that mates up with the stepped connector on the inside. So when you push this back in, you just kind of visually slide it and just wiggle it, and it slots into place. Okay, so if you want to ever charge your Saber, the best way to do it is just remove the core. Okay, from there you have access to the USB-C charging port just on the removable core. Plug it in, give it a few hours. When after it's fully charged, it's ready to fit back into the Saber. So like I said, you do that by sighting the step. You can see where the low step is. Kind of sight it in, give it a wiggle, and it just pushes back into place. Let's have a look at how the Saber breaks down now. all of this bit is pretty much lumped together. You can pop it open if you ever need to do repairs or things like that. But, we won't do that just now. What I can show you though is just the inside of that connector system. That's a hollow grip piece, like so. Okay, so try to avoid leaving the chassis in place and unscrewing this, because even though it is kind of supported, actually you can get away with it. I just personally don't like doing that. I just don't like this flapping around with the removable chassis. I prefer to have the full grip in place before I put the electronics back in. So there we go. So like I said, the finish on here, the electroplating is really nice. Let's put the core back in, put the pommel back on without over tightening it like crazy. And you'll see at the bottom of the Saber here you have the grips and the cover tech. So two things to note with the grips: if you've ever owned a Saber like this with the rubber grips on it, like a Graflex or the AS3, these are normally held in place just with double-sided adhesive 3M tape. So if you're handling the Saber, these grips can wander around slightly. That's just something to be aware of. It's very easy just to nudge them back and tease them back into line. So if you're a Graflex owner, or now you're an owner of one of these, that's just something that you have to live with as an owner of a Saber that uses these rubber grips. The rubber grips are flexible, and like I said, because there's only tape holding them in there, and that tape doesn't hard set. You don't want it to hard set anyway, really. Like I said, these will wander around slightly with use, so that's just something to be cautious of. Right, so there we go. That is the current model as per end of 2023 AS3 that we have, and like I said, I have a version that I bought a few years ago. Cost me considerably more. That is very similar actually. I've not put them side to side because it's just tucked away in storage somewhere, but just from memory, there's differences are very minor. It's certainly nothing that you would be able to pick up on. And like I said, this design is beautifully reflective of what you see on screen. Like I said, you're going to get used to wiping this down every 5 seconds. This is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, but that's something that is worth living with, just to own this really iconic model. Okay, it comes listed with everything that will be tucked away on the product listing. So, but if you have any questions prior to ordering, just feel free to pop them through, and we'll be happy to answer them. Thanks very much. Bye bye.